Are you 62 years old with $1 million in your IRA and wondering if Roth conversions are right for you? Today we'll talk about why taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement, how a Roth conversion works. Loren's headed over to the board to draw it up for us, plus 6 action steps you can take right now to put yourself in a better position to retire. Hi, I'm Molly Nelson here with Chawn Honkomp and Loren Merkle, and we're talking about Roth conversions. I'm excited, Loren, for you to go over to the board and show it to us. But first, I think we need to get a good understanding of why this is so important. And Chawn, it's important because you've been doing this for a while now, over 20 years. You know that sometimes people have assumptions about retirement. Then they sit down, they talk to you, and they realize those assumptions aren't quite what they thought they were going to be. One of those assumptions is, I'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement.
I probably can't count how many times I've heard that as we work with people about that. You're thinking, yes, you're working now, you're used to a certain level of income. You know you don't spend all that money. And then in retirement, depending on what a lifestyle need is, you're thinking, well, you're going to be down at this level. But just because you have a lower taxable income, that does not equal and does not mean that any one household is at a lower marginal tax rate. And that's really what we want to be focused on. We want to know what your marginal tax rate is and have a good sense of what that tax bill is going to be while you're working compared to what the distributions and the lifestyle need will be in retirement.
Loren, another assumption that people often have is, I'll just take those withdrawals when I need them.
That makes a lot of sense, right? You've done a lot of hard work, and that's pretty much how you put the money into these retirement accounts is out of your paycheck. It just systematically went in, or maybe monthly out of your checking account. It went into your IRAs and your other investments. So that's how you got the money in. Doesn't it make sense? That's how you take the money out.
Yeah, it does.
You retire, you need income, you take it out systematically from those accounts. That is one strategy. But there's also other strategies that can be more effective.
And that is exactly what we want to get to today. But let's talk about the reality of an IRA, because we opened up with a $1 million IRA. You're going to draw that up for us in just a little bit. But the reality with an IRA, Chawn, is that tax-deferred does not equal tax-free.
Most of the retirement savings that all of us out there have together is in pre-tax IRAs. Those have been around for longer. So from the very first time you started saving, traditional 401k has always been around, traditional IRAs have always been around. The Roth buckets are newer. So we see where a majority of that total pre-tax savings, retirement savings is pre-tax. When those distributions are taken in retirement, all of those dollars are subject to income tax. So those dollars, they've never paid taxes on them. You've never paid taxes on them before. And when you take those distributions out, the IRS is going to get part of that. So you need to be thinking about what those total balances are, what that tax liability is going to look like as those distributions are taken in retirement.
And that plays into one of the misconceptions as well, because you have $1 million IRA, it's all pre-tax. You're like, I got $1 million. This is what I've been working towards. But that doesn't mean that you get to spend that full $1 million in retirement, because a portion of that is going to go to the taxing authorities. So all of that needs to be built into your strategies and what you're thinking about before you retire.
Well, required minimum distributions are part of this conversation too. So the withdrawals, whether you start taking them at 59.5 or you wait, those are taxable. But then at a certain age, 72 or 73 for most people, right, Chawn, you're going to be forced to start taking out some of that money.
Yeah, we've seen some changes with those RMD ages going back. It used to be 70.5, it moved to 72, it's currently at 73, and for some of you, it isn't until age 75. But that's a stage of life where now potentially people lose a little bit of control. We have those large IRA pre-tax savings, and at those RMD ages, whatever they are for you, now the government is going to require you to take a certain amount of those pre-tax savings out, whether you need them or not. So being intentional and planning for that stage of life, there can be a lot of value in being ahead of that. The ideal situation, you don't want to get to a point where you are required to take more than what you need for your lifestyle.
I'm even thinking, Loren, too, if you're 62 with that $1 million IRA, and let's say you don't touch it, let's say you don't need it, then you hit 73, or probably for 62 today, it'd be 75. That $1 million IRA most likely has grown to a much larger IRA, which means you're required minimum distributions are going to be larger, and your tax bill is going to be larger.
Which means your surprise is going to be larger. And that's not an uncommon situation. Some people might be thinking, Molly, what are you talking about? I have $1 million IRA, I retire, I don't need it. Many of you out there won't need it, especially if you put together that comprehensive plan to show how you're going to get the income from optimization of your Social Security and these other resources. So it is quite possible, many people, we see it all the time, that is a tax surprise. That's all part of that conversation, how to eliminate that tax surprise, or at least minimize it as much as possible, implement the strategies necessary.
And we're talking about the taxes that will hit once you start taking the money out of the IRA. And I think we should talk about Social Security as well, because that kind of gets piled onto that tax picture when you start taking distributions.
Having a plan can be valuable from the standpoint of at some stage of your retirement, you are going to have some guaranteed sources that are providing you with some of that cash flow. Having a plan in place, doing things a few years before that, you're in a position where you can be more efficient with distributions. You can have a lower tax bill. Once these Social Security benefits are turned on, if you have an employer pension, once those benefits start, they're not going away. Nobody's going to turn those off. And now you've built an income floor that as you take other distributions, more of your Social Security becomes taxable. So there's a time frame in there where you can be intentional about certain decisions that help you be more efficient with your total balances and with these total guaranteed sources as well.
And we're talking about the things that the government requires you to do, right? So the government requires you to take money out of these IRAs. The government requires you to have some taxable possibilities on your Social Security. Let's talk about the government and tax brackets. We're having the conversation right now with the tax brackets we're in right now, but the tax brackets could change in the future.
And they probably will change. They always have changed. We go through tax bracket changes really in a significant way. And the benefit of where we're at right now from a tax bracket standpoint is we say taxes are on sale because tax brackets have rarely been lower. I mean, right now, the lowest tax bracket we have available to us is 10%. That's incredibly low. The next one up from that is 12%, and then it goes to 22, and it wasn't that long ago that the 10 was 10, the 12 was 15, and the 22 was 25. So they have decreased recently. We want to take advantage of that while we can, but we also want to insulate ourselves from future tax increases because let's face it, right now we're at all-time deficits in debt from a country standpoint, and one of the ways that we can help that is to increase taxes. So with all of this money coming out of IRAs and 401k plans as people like you retire, the IRS is looking at that saying, where can we get additional revenue? There's trillions of dollars of money that's never been taxed before. That is one place they can go to by increasing those tax brackets.
So we talked about taxes. They can be a big surprise. They can be a big expense in retirement. So there's a silver lining. There are things that you can do to take control of your tax bill in retirement. So enter the Roth conversion. Chawn, on the most basic level, what is a Roth conversion?
Well, it's good to know with a Roth conversion, this is a voluntary decision, but really what the conversion is that we pick up some of those pre-tax retirement savings that most of you have saved. We pick it up and drop it into a Roth IRA out of that rollover IRA. Any conversion amount that we do becomes taxable income for that year. Once those dollars are in the Roth IRA, you've already paid the tax bill on the dollars that were moved in. And then as they grow in the markets in the future, none of that account balance is ever subject to taxes again in the future.
Okay, so before implementing any tax strategy, though, it's important that people understand the impact. It's important people know in numbers. And Loren, when you sit down and visits with people, you draw it out for them. Hey, here's what it could look like. And I think it's really neat that right now you're going to show us a pre-retiree, a hypothetical pre-retiree, and a Roth conversion.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to see this information in order to make this decision. And that's exactly what we're going to do with our hypothetical pre-retiree. So let's introduce our pre-retiree. Her name is Jill. And Jill has been working now for about 40 years. She's age 62. And every day she's starting to think more and more about what retirement life could look like. What's she going to do when she retires? And a little bit less about what she's doing on the day-to-day from a working standpoint. So emotionally, she feels like she's getting closer and closer to retirement. So what she did is she set a target date for retirement of age 64. So she has 2 short years left to fully prepare for retirement. A lot of the questions that she still has to answer all lie around the financial side. Is she financially ready? How much money does she need? How's she going to take the income? All this stuff that she's never had to think about before, now she has to think about. And that's where we come into play. So Jill comes to see us. We create this financial analysis for her. And what that does is it helps her make these decisions with much more confidence and a little bit easier for her. So Jill has done a really good job of saving. She has a good income of $100,000 a year. And that $100,000 a year income puts her in the 22% federal tax bracket. Over the course of her working career, she's been able to save $1 million in her pre-tax IRA. As we were talking about earlier, that pre-tax means that's $1 million she has not paid taxes on before. So when she does take that income out, she is going to have to pay taxes at her ordinary income tax bracket on that money. So Jill's not naive. She knows she's going to have a retirement tax bill. The question that she's thinking about is, can she decrease that retirement tax bill, and what kind of strategies are necessary? So what we did for Jill is we put together a couple different strategies, and there's many different types of tax planning strategies. For today, we're just going to talk about the Roth conversion strategy. So with Jill, we showed her, what if you do not engage in Roth conversions? And then what if you do implement an intentional Roth conversion strategy? So first, Jill decides she's not going to do Roth conversions. She's going to retire in a couple years. She's going to just take income to support her lifestyle that she needs, and she's going to have a good retirement. But over the course of that 20-year time horizon, if we add up the annual tax bill over those 20 years, as she's taken this money from her $1 million pre-tax IRA, it's going to add up her retirement tax bill to be about $430,000. Now, I know what you're thinking. $430,000 on $1 million IRA, that is significant. This is not an uncommon phenomenon. If you're thinking at home right now, if you're thinking about your pre-tax retirement accounts, you're saying, what is your retirement tax bill? If your pre-tax retirement accounts are 7 figures, it is not uncommon for that 20-year retirement tax bill to add up to be $400,000, $500,000, even $600,000. So Jill sees this. Again, she knew it was going to be a big tax bill, but she's wondering, how could a Roth conversion strategy decrease this for her? So then what we do is we show her what it would look like if she implements a Roth conversion strategy. So she implements this Roth conversion strategy, and you'll notice this is a 7-year strategy. And what she's going to do, as we mentioned, she's in the 22% federal tax bracket. Each one of these 7 years, she's going to fill up that 22% federal tax bracket. Now, one of the key elements to this strategy is she's not going to wait till she retires to start the Roth conversion. She's going to take advantage of the 2 years she has left working to fill up the 22% bracket, which means she's not going to be able to convert as much during those years because she has a really good income. But once she retires and she doesn't have that $100,000 of earned wages, she can convert more to still fill up that 22% federal tax bracket. So the other thing to note here is she's not going to convert that full $1 million balance, but that's okay because she's going to have a significant balance in the Roth that later down the road in retirement, she can take some income from the pre-tax, some income from the tax-free Roth to deliver the lifestyle that she wants, but decrease her overall retirement tax bill. So in this strategy with the Roth conversion, we add up the annual tax bill over that same 20-year time horizon, then that tax bill does not equate to $430,000. It actually equates to only $320,000. Now you're saying, Loren, you said only. It's still a significant bill. It's still a big bill, but I can tell you paying $110,000 less over the course of Jill's lifetime in retirement, that is significant. Now this strategy works well for Jill. And again, there's many types of strategies. This may not be right for you. In fact, the odds are is that your strategies would need to look different. But the important thing is that you do the analysis. You take a look at the strategies and you say, what if? What if I do this strategy? What if I do this strategy? What does that look like for you? And then you can make your decisions like Jill with ease and confidence.
$110,000 more in retirement, that's powerful. That is a powerful amount of money, and Jill could take a pretty nice vacation or two with that amount of money.
She could do a lot of nice things with $110,000.
She sure could. And this is the kind of stuff that you draw up for people, Chawn. And what I like most about the process that you walk people through is if they do decide a Roth conversion is right for them and you help them make that decision, they know why they're doing it. They know why they're invested a certain way. There's very much a purpose to these kinds of illustrations when you show them to people.
Like every decision that gets made, you should want to know the why. What options do you have? What's the good and bad with each option that you have? And whatever decisions do get made, understand the why. Loren, you talked about that the analysis needs to be done to be able to execute a Roth conversion strategy like Jill did. That starts with having that written comprehensive plan. That's what allows us to have that information because the dollar amounts are unique to each and every plan. The timing of when to do those conversions are unique to each and every plan. And a statement we hear often is that people feel like there's age requirements or earned income requirements with conversions. No, that's a completely voluntary decision that can be done any year, no matter what age you are when it comes to the conversions. Some of those aspects apply to contributions, but conversions, we have full control to do those when we want to, when it makes sense, with the goal of helping people save on their tax bill.
And sometimes that's the hardest part because you don't have to pay taxes. And a lot of us have been taught defer, defer, defer. Don't pay taxes on this money until you absolutely have to. But in fact, the delayed tax paying strategy, like in Jill's situation, could end up costing you more. But you don't know unless you do the analysis.
As promised, 6 action steps to help put you in a better position to retire. Here we are. Action step number 1, get a retirement tax strategy.
And make sure that tax strategy just isn't looking at 1 year. Much like Jill, she's trying to make permanent decisions that's going to affect the rest of her life. If she's only looking at just 1 year, if you're only looking at 1 year as you're trying to make these big decisions, you're probably going to miss out on a lot of the information you need to help you make an effective tax planning strategy. So it needs to look at year over year for the next 20, even 25 years.
Action step number 2, run a Roth conversion analysis.
Just like Loren showed us with Jill, it's important to get that information. And just like you also said, Loren, it's about having that long-term view, the several years. Get the information you need, develop a plan, have an idea of what your lifestyle is going to be. What level of distributions and taxable income is that going to require? Then we have an idea of where people land on the federal tax brackets. That helps identify what the Roth conversion opportunities might look like for you. And then develop that plan. What can we do this year? What opportunities are we going to have in future years to help you lower your tax bill throughout their retirement journey?
Yeah, and I might note that Jill didn't wait until 65 to do this. The example was 62, but it's the kind of thing you want to start talking about maybe even at 55 plus because you can kind of get set up for that Roth conversion.
Yeah, sometimes it's really tempting to wait until you retire because you have so much going on prior to that retirement, especially at work. But once people realize how they can really improve their retirement picture by planning as early as possible and all the money they can save, just like Jill saving over $110,000, that's significant and really a good motivation to start planning early.
Action step number 3, coordinate Social Security.
Social Security is permanent. It is one of those incomes that is not going to weigh until you pass away. That's one of the benefits of Social Security. One of the disadvantages of Social Security is once you turn it on, you're not going to turn it off. And that means it can really impact your tax plan. It can really impact the income that you decide to take from the investments that you save. It can impact your legacy plan. There's so much that it can impact. You need to make sure you're not making a siloed Social Security decision. Consider all of the other pillars of your retirement plan as you're making that decision.
Action step number 4, review your investment purpose.
The investment purpose and decisions become more and more important as you get closer to retirement and then definitely in retirement. You want to be more informed. You want to feel better about whatever investment decisions you choose to use and how you design that overall portfolio. People get to a stage of life where they start these distributions. Most people don't want to have the same investment strategies that they took when they were younger. Let's build these different buckets. Let's have diversification. You probably want to have a safer short-term income bucket now that you're on the doorstep of taking distributions. You're going to want to still take risk in the markets. No matter what age we are, we probably will always have some dollars in the market. But feel more informed. Be more intentional about those decisions and make sure you feel comfortable with whatever level of risk you're taking and how much exposure you're taking on in the markets at retirement.
Action step number 5, plan for healthcare.
We talked about how tax legislation changes consistently. Healthcare legislation changes probably even more consistently and more frequently, which is why we have a Medicare long-term care healthcare specialist on our team, Anna Marie. A lot of you know who Anna Marie is. She does a great job. It's so important to make sure you get your healthcare decisions right. You know that because it's very costly. And if you don't have the right healthcare, when you have the need for healthcare, it can be even exceedingly more costly. So you want confidence in your healthcare decisions. If you're going to retire prior to age 65, Medicare eligibility age, which on average most people do, average people retire between 62 and 63, which means there's a gap that you're going to need to cover prior to Medicare eligibility. And then once Medicare is elected, it's not a set it and forget it. You have each and every year a decision you need to make. So it's really important you make the decision right the first time, the second time, the third time, and so forth.
And every other time after that. Number 6, think about legacy.
The legacy will be important, whether you have a goal of leaving a bunch of money behind and helping out your children and beneficiaries, grandchildren, or whether your goal is to spend almost all of your money. There will likely be some assets that you pass along, and you want to have those assets, make sure they end up in the right place with the right people that you care about. So develop that legacy plan, have those goals written out, and make sure you're making the best decisions. No one ever knows when their legacy plan will have to be executed, unfortunately, but be in the best position, make sure we have everything in order. And as we've talked so much about taxes today, the taxes can be a big part of your legacy plan. If you don't pay the tax bill and take all those IRA distributions while someone's living, then those beneficiaries are going to be facing a tax bill as well when they inherit those dollars.
Something we've learned from these action steps is that it's about so much more than investments. There is to really get this retirement thing, to maximize it, I guess is the best way to put it, you have to look at so many pillars, like, I don't know, a retire secure roadmap?
Which involves 6 pillars, which is really built around all of those action steps, or the other way around. The action steps are built around those 6 pillars. The first pillar is probably what you're most concerned about, which is your lifestyle pillar. What are you going to do in retirement? And then once you figure out what your retirement lifestyle is going to look like, you start to be concerned about how are you going to pay for this lifestyle. That's where the other 5 pillars come into play: income, taxes, healthcare, investments, and legacy. Those are the financial pillars that help you live your lifestyle. Those 6 pillars make up our comprehensive retirement plan, which we call the Retire Secure Roadmap. And really, that's what people need, a comprehensive plan as they're making these decisions. And it's one thing for us to talk about all of this stuff. It's one thing for us to talk to you or your advisor to talk to you about this stuff. But I can tell you, if you can see it, just like Jill could see it, what if she did a Roth conversion? What if she didn't? Your decisions become a lot easier, and you're way more confident and probably happier going into and through retirement.
So we're talking about action steps. Here's a great action step for you. It's a retire ready call. So whether some of the assumptions that we started the show with were assumptions that you had, or maybe you've got a specific question about something that you heard today, you can talk about it in a Retire Ready call. Go to retirereadycall.com right now. You'll see a calendar there. You can choose a time and a date that works for you, and then you can have a low pressure, low key conversation directly with a retirement planner. Chawn, you do these all the time, and in about 15 or 20 minutes, you can get a lot accomplished.
It's so fun just to be able to meet people and talk and figure out where they're at. Where are you at in life? Whether you're a few years away from retirement, whether you're in retirement already, we are able to help you with whatever decisions you might be facing. So a lot of time we get to help people, hey, I've got this decision to make. We can share our thoughts and opinions and help people progress and move forward with a more confident decision. Or a lot of you've been watching our TV show for a long time. You want to get a better sense of what we all do as a retirement planning firm, and you want to take step 1. And that Retire Ready call is a great way for people to take step 1 and work towards them getting their own Retire Secure roadmap.
Yeah, if you're working, sometimes it's hard to take a step. You're so focused on the day-to-day, but usually it's worth the time.
It's going to pay off for you most likely, and you're going to feel so much better about it. What I like about the Retire Ready call is it's easy, it's complimentary, and it can get you started.
You can go to retirereadycall.com right now. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Click here for more great videos, and don't forget to subscribe for more retirement planning content.